The night, a little girl looked up at me and said, "Sir, we haven't eaten since yesterday." Something in me cracked in a way no boardroom fight, no lawsuit, no divorce argument ever had, and the worst part was the little voice in the back of my head whispering, "Maybe they were right about you all along." My name is Matthew Harrison. I run a commercial real estate company my father built from nothing. I live in a big old mansion behind iron gates, and for years people have called me cold, heartless, the kind of guy who cares more about numbers than people. That December night, walking home through the snow with my collar up and my mind on projections and leases, I was about to prove them right until that kid opened her mouth. It was one of those nights where the city looks like a postcard, snow falling, slow streetlights glowing, but the cold cuts right through your expensive wool coat, and if you're sleeping outside, it might just kill you. I was 3 blocks from the office texting my assistant about a morning meeting, mentally writing an email I owed my mother when I saw them outside my gate. 2 shapes pushed up against the stone wall, a smaller one tucked into a bigger one, both dusted in white like part of the scenery. If you've ever lived in a big city, you know the instinct I had. Look past them. Tell yourself there are shelters and social workers and hotlines. Tell yourself it's not your job. Keep moving, you know what I mean. I had my keys in my hand, my mind already picturing the warm lights of my entryway when the small shape moved. A little girl pushed herself upright, snow stuck in her hair, wearing a coat that was more of a suggestion than protection, clutching a frayed teddy bear like it was the last solid thing she had. Her eyes found mine, and for a second we just stared at each other. Then she said it. "Sir, we haven't eaten since yesterday." I know that line probably sounds like something from a movie, but I'm telling you that's exactly how she said it. No drama, no begging, just this small, exhausted voice stating a fact. Behind her, the woman I would later know as Sarah was slumped against the wall, face to pale lips with that bluish tint you never want to see on a living person, breath shallow and shaky. All my usual mental scripts. The shelters will handle it. Someone else is better trained. You can't save everyone. Just fell apart. I walked over and crouched down so I wasn't towering over the kid. "Hey," I said, "what's your name?" "Chloe," she answered, hugging the bear a little closer. "And this is my mom, Sarah." "How long have you been out here, Chloe?" She did that little shrug kids do when time doesn't mean much. "Since it got dark," she said. "We had to leave our place. Mom couldn't pay. She tried the shelters, but they were full. Then she got sick and couldn't walk anymore, so we stopped here." My front door was maybe 20 steps away. My gate was literally the line between my world and theirs. For one ugly second, I heard that old voice in my head saying, "Just call someone, let the city deal with it. You don't have to get involved." Then Chloe's fingers brushed my sleeve like she was afraid I might disappear. And that was it. "Chloe," I said, pointing at the house, "I live right there. I want to bring you and your mom inside where it's warm, okay?" Her eyes went wide. "Really?" she whispered. "You'd let us come in?" "Yeah," I said, pulling out my phone. "But we've got to move fast. Your mom needs help now." I called 911, gave them the address, then bent down and picked Sarah up. She was frighteningly light, like lifting a bundle of clothes without a body inside, her skin cold through her thin sweater. Chloe walked beside me through the gate boots, slipping in the snow, still hanging onto that bear. And the whole time, part of my brain just kept saying, "This is happening outside your own house." The warmth hit us as soon as we opened the door. Hall lights glowing, the faint smell of food still hanging in the air. And the contrast between inside and outside almost made me sick. My housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, stepped out of the kitchen, dish towel in her hand, and froze when she saw me carrying an unconscious woman with a little girl behind me. "Mr. Harrison." "Blankets," I said, heading for the living room, "and a bowl of warm water, not hot, and please call Dr. Morrison. Tell him it's urgent." She didn't ask questions. She just moved. I laid Sarah on the couch and wrapped her in blankets while Chloe hovered so close I could feel her shaking. "Is my mom gonna die?" she whispered. Nobody had ever asked me something like that before. Investors ask if a deal will close, lawyers ask if I'll settle, my ex-wife asked if I even felt anything anymore. But this was different. "We're not going to let that happen," I told her, trying to believe it myself. "We're going to take care of her, okay? But I need your help. When's the last time you ate?" She looked down at her shoes. "Yesterday morning," she said. "We had cereal, then the milk ran out, and we didn't have money for more." I've sat through angry public hearings, I've seen people cry about rent increases tied to my projects. But that one simple sentence from a hungry 6-year-old standing in my living room hit me like a punch to the chest. Mrs. Chen had soup heating on the stove before I even finished asking. She sat Chloe at the kitchen island, put a steaming bowl in front of her, and I watched that kid wrap her hands around it like it was the sun. When the paramedics arrived, they went straight to Sarah, checked her vitals, hooked up oxygen. "She's got pneumonia and hypothermia," one of them told me. "If she'd been out there much longer." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Then he glanced at Chloe, then at me. "What about the little girl?" Chloe froze with her spoon halfway to her mouth. For once in my life, I didn't think in terms of policy or liability. I just said, "She stays here. She'll stay with me tonight." He frowned. "Sir, normally we call social services. They'll place her with relatives or in temporary care." "Call whoever you need," I said. "Run whatever checks you want. But tonight she is not going to some stranger's couch. While her mom fights for her life, she's staying in this house." That's how I ended up in a plastic chair in the ER waiting room a couple of hours later, with Chloe asleep against my side and a social worker with a clipboard standing in front of me. "Mr. Harrison," she said in that calm, professional tone, "we appreciate what you've done, but Chloe really should be in a licensed foster home. I'm not sending her anywhere until we know her mom is stable." I told her, "You can put my name through every database you want. I'm not disappearing with her. This is my city, my house, and right now she's my responsibility." You could see her weighing it. Powerful CEO, scared little girl, the mess it would cause either way. For once, my money and my reputation tipped the scale towards something that wasn't just profit. "Temporarily," she finally said, "pending checks." The next morning, I woke up in my own bed to find Chloe standing in the doorway, hair a mess, bare dangling from one hand. "Mr. Harrison," she said, "is my mom okay?" There is nothing like being called Mr. in your own bedroom by a kid who's been through hell. "You can call me Matthew," I told her, getting up, "or Mr. Harrison, if that feels better, but yeah, let's get you some breakfast, and then we'll call the hospital together." Mrs. Chen was already making pancakes, because of course she was, and for the first time my big, polished kitchen smelled like an actual home. Chloe climbed onto a stool and watched the batter hit the pan. "We used to have pancakes on special days," she said softly. "Before Dad left, before Mom got sick, before we lost our apartment." It came out so simple, like she was listing the weather instead of trauma. I asked what her mom did, and she brightened just a little. "She was a pediatric nurse," she said. "She helped sick kids, then she got sick, and they said she couldn't work as much. The bills got bigger. The money got smaller. You can fill in the rest." When we went back to the hospital later, Chloe practically flew into Sarah's room. "Baby, are you okay?" Sarah rasped, voice rough. I'm so sorry, I tried. I really tried. It's okay, Mom, Chloe told her. Mr. Matthew helped us. He took us to his house. We had soup and pancakes, and it was warm. That's when Sarah really looked at me. The suit, the tired eyes, the man who had every advantage and for once hadn't walked past. You're the man from the house, she said, embarrassed and grateful at the same time. I don't know how to thank you. We'll be out of your way as soon as I'm discharged. I'll find somewhere else for us to go. Where? I asked. I didn't say it harshly, but it was a sharp question. Where exactly are you going to go with pneumonia? No job, no apartment, no family nearby. What door do you knock on next? Her eyes filled with tears. It's not your problem, she whispered. You've already done more than enough. I can't be somebody's charity case. I have this autoimmune thing. I can't work the shifts I used to. I'm complicated. Normally, that's where my world writes a check, feels virtuous, and steps back. Instead, I pulled the chair closer. 5 years ago, my wife left me. I told her, she said I'd become cold, that I cared more about quarterly numbers than human beings, that I'd turned into a man my father wouldn't recognize, and the worst part is, she wasn't wrong. My dad built our company on the idea that success means nothing if you never use it to help anybody else, and somewhere between promotions and profits, I buried that. Last night, your daughter looked at me with everything she had left and asked for help, and I realized I had a choice. Keep being the guy my ex walked away from, or try to be the man my father raised me to be. I took a breath. So here's what I'm offering, no strings, no fine print. You and Chloe come stay at my house while you recover. You get a warm room and some time to heal. I'll use my connections to help you find work that fits your health. And if at any point you want to walk away, you walk, no bill, no guilt trip. This isn't a cage. Chloe looked at her mom with those huge, hopeful eyes. Please, Mom, she whispered. I like it there, and you could rest. Sarah broke, then really cried, the kind of crying that makes everyone else look away. When she finally nodded and said, Okay, just until I'm steady again, and I will pay you back. I felt something in my chest unclench that had been tight for years. What I didn't expect was how much the quiet days after would change me. My big, empty mansion slowly turned into a place that sounded like life. Cartoons on Saturday mornings, pots clanging in the kitchen, while Chloe and Mrs. Chen tried recipes from YouTube. Sarah's laugh, drifting down the hallway, while she teased me about my terrible taste in art, and helped rearrange my cold, staged rooms into spaces you'd actually want to sit down in. I started leaving the office earlier, not because I suddenly became lazy, but because I wanted to hear how Chloe's spelling test went, or whether Sarah had enough energy for her doctor's appointment. The guys on my board made jokes about me going soft, midlife crisis, all of that. But you know what? They stopped laughing when I told them we were starting a foundation to help healthcare workers like Sarah, who were one bad break away from the street. With her permission, I used my experience and my money to set up short-term housing, small emergency grants connections for nurses and aides who'd fallen through the cracks. I'd spent years squeezing every dollar out of buildings. It turns out the same skills work just fine for squeezing out a little bit of justice, too. Not everyone believed it, of course. People online said it was a PR stunt, that I was using a sob story to fix my image, that Sarah and Chloe were props in my redemption arc. And honestly, if you only saw the headlines, I get it. From the outside, it probably does look like a neat little story. Cold CEO saves poor family, learns to care, rolls credits. Reality is messier. A year after that night on Christmas morning, I sat on my own couch with a mug of coffee while Chloe tore into presents in front of the tree, and Sarah leaned against my shoulder in one of my old sweatshirts, like she'd been doing it for years. and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own house. I squeezed her hand and said, "Thank you." She frowned. "For what you did all this?" I shook my head. "You and Chloe turned my house into a home." I told her, "You reminded me why my dad started this company in the first place. You gave me back a part of myself I thought I'd buried." Later, after Chloe passed out in a nest of wrapping paper, Sarah and I were alone in the kitchen, the kind of quiet that feels warm, not awkward. "Why did you really let us in that night?" she asked. "Not the version you tell reporters, the real reason." I told her I was tired of being the guy who could walk past a sentence like, "We haven't eaten since yesterday," and still sleep fine. That when Chloe said those words, I finally saw who I'd become. And I hated that man, and helping them was the first thing I'd done in a long time that felt like the person my father tried to raise. Then I told her I loved her, that I loved Chloe like she was my own, and I asked if she'd ever consider making this permanent, not because she needed security or felt grateful, but because she actually wanted a life with me. She didn't give me some dramatic movie answer. She got quiet, really quiet. "People are always going to have opinions about us," she said. "They're going to say I used you or you used me to feel better about yourself. And they won't be completely wrong, because this started with you having everything and me having nothing. And that kind of imbalance doesn't just disappear. But you opened your door when you didn't have to. You stayed when it got messy. You let us change you, and that counts for something. So let me answer you as the woman I am now, not just the woman who was freezing outside your gate." That's where we are as I tell you this. Somewhere between rescue and partnership, between guilt and grace, between the story people think they're seeing and the messier truth we live every day. And now I want to throw it to you. If you were in Sarah's place, could you ever fully trust someone who had that much power over your life when they first helped you? Or would you always be waiting for the bill? If you were in mine, would you have opened that gate at all? Or would you have called a hotline, written a check, and gone inside? Do you think what I did was genuinely good selfish in a nicer outfit, or flat out wrong because of the power difference? Tell me in the comments if you think people like me can actually change, or if we just rewrite our stories to make ourselves feel better. Share a time someone completely misjudged you without knowing what you were carrying, or a time you misjudged someone until you heard the whole story. And if you've ever had that one sentence from a stranger that forced you to decide who you really wanted to be, I'd really like to hear it, because, "Sir, we haven't eaten since yesterday," is never leaving my head, and honestly, I don't think it's supposed to.